Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a story about power, about what happens when you push someone to the edge, shove them into the abyss, and laugh as they fall. You see, every smile hides a secret, every calm face masks a storm, and every ordinary soul carries a monster within. But this isn't about monsters that lurk in shadows, no. This is about the ones you awaken, the ones you dare to provoke. And here's the twist, this isn't a story of sympathy, it's a reckoning. What happens when the oppressed becomes the oppressor? When the fuel of betrayal ignites an inferno that consumes everything in its path. You'll want to stay till the end, because by the time I'm done, you'll see the reflection of that monster, not just in others, but in yourselves. Every monster begins as a shadow, a fragment of something barely noticeable, lingering quietly in the corners of the world. It doesn't appear fierce or menacing at first. No, it begins as something much smaller, a thought, a doubt, an insecurity planted by the hands of others. It starts with whispers of discontent, subtle cracks in the foundation of someone's being. A moment of neglect here, a sting of ridicule there. Society has a way of brushing these moments aside, labeling them as harmless, even trivial. After all, who notices the weight of a single grain of sand? But grains pile up unnoticed until they become mountains. It's in this silence, this dismissal, that the monster starts to take form. Not all at once, of course. The world rarely notices the early stages. A cruel word, a broken promise, or an unjust act leaves its mark, each one layering over the last. It's a slow burn, a quiet build. And then there's betrayal of betrayal. Betrayal that takes the fragile pieces of a person and shatters them completely. It doesn't matter if the betrayal comes from a friend, a stranger, or society itself. What matters is the wound it leaves behind. The thing about wounds is they don't always heal. Sometimes they fester, turning pain into bitterness, bitterness into anger, and anger into something far more dangerous. The shadow grows deeper, darker, and more solid. The monster doesn't emerge because it chooses to. It's forced out, pulled from the depths by the weight of everything it has endured. The people who sculpted the monster rarely notice what they're creating. They mistake silence for submission, resilience for weakness. They don't realize that their actions are feeding something far beyond their control, until it's too late to stop what's coming. Pushing someone beyond their limits is a dangerous game. There's a point where the human spirit, no matter how strong or resilient, begins to bend under pressure. At first, it seems like compliance, like surrender, as if the person is absorbing every blow and retreating into themselves. But beneath that surface lies a transformation. People have a breaking point, and when they reach it, something profound shifts within them. The quiet endurance is replaced by something far less forgiving, far less recognizable. When you strip someone of their dignity, their security, or their sense of self, you awaken forces they didn't even know they possessed. It's not a choice they make, it's a survival mechanism, a response to the relentless pounding they've endured. That's the irony of it all. The more someone is suppressed, the more they're forced to evolve into something that can't be ignored or controlled. It's like a dormant volcano, silent for years, giving no indication of the storm brewing beneath its surface, until one day it erupts with unstoppable force. Every act of provocation adds fuel to the transformation. Insults turn into scars, and those scars become armor. Betrayal carves wounds that eventually harden into weapons. And the very people who pushed and prodded, thinking they held all the power, are often blind to the changes taking place. They think they've won, that they've broken someone down. What they don't see is that they've ignited a fire, one that grows hotter and fiercer with every injustice. This transformation is not gentle, nor is it reversible. It's raw and primal, born of necessity and forged in pain. It's not an evolution by choice, but one dictated by survival. What emerges is no longer the person they once knew. The warning signs are always there, but they are easy to overlook, even easier to dismiss. It starts with a change in posture, a slight hunch in the shoulders, a lowering of the gaze. A voice that was once vibrant and full of life becomes quieter, softer, until it's barely a whisper. These are the moments when something begins to crack beneath the surface. People call it moodiness, an attitude problem, or even weakness, brushing it off without a second thought. After all, why take notice of something so subtle? But subtle doesn't mean harmless. The storm always gives small signs before it hits. A shift in the wind, a drop in pressure. The same is true for the human spirit. Those quiet moments of withdrawal, those unspoken words, are warnings of a pressure building inside. People pretend not to notice because it's easier that way. It's easier to dismiss someone as fragile or overreacting than to face the uncomfortable truth that they might be playing a role in someone's undoing. It isn't until those warning signs grow louder, until they demand attention, that people start to feel uneasy. But by then it's often too late. What was once subtle has become glaringly obvious. The silence has turned into a roar, and the whispers of discontent have transformed into shouts of rebellion. People begin to see the cracks they ignored for so long, the weight of their actions reflected in someone else's pain. The irony is that the signs were never really hidden. They were there all along, in the fleeting glances, the strained smiles, the moments of hesitation. It's just that no one wanted to see them. And when the cracks widen and the dam finally bursts, those who ignored the signs will be the first to question where it all went wrong. Pain is a remarkable force. It has the power to break someone apart, but it also has the power to rebuild them into something entirely new. When someone is pushed into the depths of suffering, they don't just endure it, they adapt. They transform. Pain sharpens their senses, heightens their awareness, and awakens parts of them they never knew existed. What begins as a wound becomes a source of power, a force that cannot be ignored. It isn't a graceful process. It's messy, chaotic, and raw. But from that chaos emerges something unyielding. The transformation starts with survival. Pain forces people to dig deep, to find strength they didn't think they had. It strips away the unnecessary, leaving only the core of who they are. Every tear, every scar becomes a badge of endurance. It's in these moments that they learn to wield pain, not as a burden, but as a weapon. What was once a source of vulnerability becomes their greatest strength. Pain also brings clarity. It reveals truths that were hidden before, stripping away illusions and forcing someone to see the world for what it truly is. It gives them a perspective that others lack, a sharpness that cuts through the noise. It teaches them resilience, the ability to stand tall, even when the weight of the world is pressing down on them. There's an alchemy in pain, a way it turns fear into courage, despair into determination. It doesn't erase the suffering, but it redefines it. It's not about escaping the hurt, but about owning it, using it as fuel to move forward. Pain doesn't just change a person, it empowers them, turning what was once a source of weakness into an unshakable foundation of strength. When a reckoning comes, it does not arrive gently. It does not ask for permission or give warnings. It crashes in like a tidal wave, unapologetic and unstoppable, sweeping away everything in its path. The people who have awakened this force often believe they are immune to its consequences. They think their actions, their words, their betrayals will go unanswered. But life has a way of balancing the scales. of ensuring that those who sow seeds of destruction must eventually face the harvest they've created. The reckoning is not an act of chance, it is inevitable. Every action carries consequences, and every choice leaves a mark. For those who have inflicted harm, the reckoning begins as an echo faint at first, a whisper of discomfort. But echoes grow, bouncing off the walls of their arrogance and multiplying until they become deafening. The harm they've caused, the pain they've dismissed, comes back to them in ways they never expected. There's a particular irony in the reckoning. The very tools they used to break someone else, the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty, become the weapons turned against them. It is not a matter of revenge, it is the natural order of things, the universe correcting itself. They thought they could escape it, but no one truly escapes the consequences of their actions. As the reckoning unfolds, it becomes clear that it is not just a punishment, it is a mirror. It forces those responsible to confront the ugliness of their deeds, to see the ripple effects of their choices laid bare. The reckoning doesn't negotiate or make excuses. It simply delivers what is owed, with a cold, unrelenting precision. And for those who once believed themselves untouchable, it is a force they can neither outrun nor overpower. Think about this: every time you silence someone, you plant a seed. Every time you betray someone, you water that seed. Every time you laugh at someone's pain, you shine sunlight on it. Until one day it grows into something vast, something powerful, something you cannot contain. You call it a monster. But is it really? Or is it simply the truth, dressed in teeth and claws, refusing to stay silent any longer? Here's the irony: the monster you fear is the monster you created. And now, as it rises, as it towers over you with its eyes ablaze, remember this: you asked for it, you begged for it, you awakened it. And the monster? Oh, it will devour you. Not because it hates you, but because that's what monsters do.